Hey guys, today we have a F-150 2012 model. It's four-wheel drive, and what they're complaining about is the right front wheel is grinding. They say most of the time it's first thing in the morning when they're backing out of their driveway. They'll engage the four-wheel drive, it'll go away, they'll put it back in two-wheel drive, and it stays gone. This is a pretty common problem on these Ford four-wheel drives. They have what they call a IWE integrated wheel end hub assembly, and it operates off vacuum. And the way it works is it's spring-loaded. When there's no vacuum to it, it's spring-loaded to the four-wheel drive position. When you apply vacuum, it pulls the splined gear out of engagement, so the wheel free spins, so it's in two-wheel drive. And there's a few things that can go wrong. You've got the solenoid that can go wrong, go bad, and it can be intermittent. You got this check valve that can go bad. Of course, you got all the vacuum lines that can leak, and then you've got the IWE assembly itself that starts leaking or grenades itself, so it's inop. And I'll just go through a few steps here on an easy way to determine what it is that you've got wrong. First thing you want to do is make sure that you've got that everything's hooked up. So let me show you where this thing hooks up at, vacuum line wise. You see the vacuum hoses right there? That's the IWE. Okay, that's the integrated wheel hub. Wheel end is what it stands for, but it's part of the hub. So it's this piece right here. And you can see these vacuum lines. There's actually two vacuum lines. One's just a vent. The smaller hose built into this is all it is a vent. And if you go up about 2 feet, follow that line up about 2 feet, you'll see where it's just open to atmosphere. That's so that you can pull a vacuum on it and release it, and it's going to freely release the vacuum. So you don't really have to worry about checking that small line. Obviously, you don't want it clogged up, but it needs you don't have to worry about it if it's leaking, because it's open on the other end. But the big line's got to be good. It can't have any cracks or holes or anything like that in it. So now if you look, this one, you can see it is engaged right now. The vehicle is off. Okay, let's go over on the driver's side. Okay, the wheel is spinning, but you can see that axle is not turning. So that means that this wheel has vacuum applied to that assembly right now. That other side either has vacuum applied to it, and the IWE is bad, or it doesn't have vacuum because the hoses or the line is leaking, or could be plugged up and it just can't pull a vacuum on it. But this is an easy way that you can check to see okay, so this is the reservoir. This is a vacuum reservoir right here. This is your solenoid that whenever you go into four-wheel drive, this is what engages and disengages. Check valve. This is the main vacuum line. On this particular make and model, it's coming right here off where the booster is getting its vacuum. I'm going to disconnect it right there. So I'm just going to kind of twist it and pull it. Okay, so that line's off. I did not hear any vacuum escape, which means that there's either no vacuum in this reservoir or the check valve is good. So what this particular test is about to do is check to see if this check valve is good. if that check valve was bad, as soon as I disconnected this, well, you wouldn't have even heard vacuum then, because it would have just leaked out through the engine when you shut the vehicle off. But I'm going to disconnect the hose right here. You can disconnect it here. And we should, if there's vacuum stored in this vacuum reservoir, and if this check valve is good, we should hear vacuum escaping. So let's, now I don't know if you heard that, but I definitely heard vacuum, you know, escaping. So now there's no vacuum in this system, which means this hub should be locked up now. So since there's no vacuum, the IWEs are spring loaded to the four-wheel drive position, and I just released the vacuum on the system. You can see that axle now is engaged and is turning. So we just proved that this IWE will work when vacuum is applied. It disengages, and whenever you release vacuum, it spring loads into the four-wheel drive and it engages the four-wheel drive. So the question is, why is that passenger side staying engaged in four-wheel drive? I mean, I already pretty much know the answer to that. It's probably because that IWE is bad and needs to be replaced. But we're going to go ahead and check. I'm going to disconnect that vacuum line over there, and we're going to make sure that we're getting vacuum to it and that the vacuum hose is not leaking. So let me get set up to show you that check. Now I'll show you real quick before I do that. Let me show you. Let me go ahead and I'm going to hook my, I've got a, oh, sorry about that, I hit the button. So I've got a mighty vac, and I've got it pigged into the main vacuum hose. Now you could just start the car up and let it pull the vacuum if you don't have a mighty vac, but we're just going to use a mighty vac. I'm going to pump up some vacuum on this, and it doesn't take much. So right now the wheel, the axle's disengaged. We've only got about 4 inches of mercury worth of vacuum pulled on this thing. So it doesn't take much to disengage it. I'm going to go ahead and pump it up to about as much as I can. I'll get your hand tired. And like I say, you can just start the vehicle up and let it be the vacuum source. So we're about, what, 15? That's about 18. I mean, that's more than enough. We're at about 18 inches. Now I can just tell by spinning this, it is not engaged into the four-wheel drive, which means this side over here shouldn't be. But it is. I can, first of all, you can tell it doesn't spin near as long, and I can hear it turning the axle. I don't know if you can tell that that axle's turning, but it is. So what I'm going to do, since I know that there should be vacuum right here right now, I'm going to disconnect it, and let's see if we hear any vacuum escaping. And I do. Okay, so there's definitely vacuum at this IWE. Now, just to double check, so I've got my mighty vac, and I've got it hooked up right here to the vacuum port. That's the bigger of the two. So we'll pump it up. And you can tell that it's not leaking, because obviously it's holding vacuum. But I don't hear any movement inside the hub, and I should. And the axle's still engaged. So I already know that IWE is bad. Now I'm going to be replacing it. There's really no reason for me to hook that back up, but going to anyway. Now, if you've got a scan tool, let me show you how you can check your solenoid. Let me get set up to do the solenoid. Okay, so I got the scanner all connected. We're going to go to diagnostic control unit. Transfer case control module. Active test. Okay, right here, integrated wheel ends output. So we're going to click that. What do we want to see here? We'll select both those. This is just giving us what we want to see whenever we engage it and disengage it. That's probably plenty. So what this is going to do is hopefully you can hear the relay. I'm going to go ahead and hit yes. So what it is it's showing integrated wheel ends output, no. That's the command, no. Integrated wheel ends output, and this is what the computer's seeing. This is what it should be seeing. Of course, there's no fault, so I'm going to hit yes. And I don't know if you could hear that on this solenoid. I'm going to hit no. Yes. Do you hear the clicking? So I'm going to start this up. Let me get my mighty back here, my vacuum gauge. Let's start the vehicle up. So you can see the vacuum gauge. I'm going to hit yes. Vacuum just died. So we're commanded on. There's no vacuum. I'm going to hit no. We got vacuum. Hit yes. No vacuum. No. So that tells me that relay is working just fine. Now, if you don't have a scan tool, you can do the same check just by going in the vehicle and going from 2-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive. Then if you can put the vacuum gauge up into the steering wheel, the windshield area, then you'll be able to see the vacuum gauge. But I'm just using my scanner because it's just easier. But so I've got the vacuum line hooked back up to the vacuum source. So I've got everything hooked up right now like it should. And all I'm doing is commanding the solenoid on and off with the scanner. And then I've got my vacuum source hooked up. This is the hose that would be going down to the IWEs. And that's just showing that the solenoid is working. The solenoid will shut off. It'll go to 0 and it'll open and we'll have vacuum. So the solenoid is good. We checked the check valve earlier to verify that it was good. Because either one of those can cause this problem. And the vacuum line, whenever I pulled it off the IWE down at the wheel and heard the vacuum being released, told me that vacuum line all the way to the IWE is good and solid and will hold a vacuum. So that IWE is going to have to come apart and be replaced. So that is going to be the next step on this truck. I'm going to contact the customer, see if they want to do that. They've already told me they do. If that ends up being the problem. So the next step is going to be taking that front end apart to do that. Be back then.